What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and it's snowing here in Lexington, the worst snow that we've had in, God, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 years. It's pretty bad over the last few days. So because I'm stuck in the house, I figured I'd make a video. So there's been some recent discussion as to the idea of a Sinister Six film coming out sometime in the future. So that's what we're going to talk about in this video. In this video, we're going to talk about the original Sinister Six and what possible characters they may include in the upcoming Marvel film. I just want to get loose when the beat drops. So I think that when people think about the Sinister Six, they have this tendency to think of the group being a sort of Marvel version of a villain group like the Secret Society of Supervillains from DC Comics. The Secret Society of Supervillains from DC was a group that was formed secretly by the villain Darkseid, and it was a group that was designed to directly oppose the Justice League of America. But unlike the Secret Society of Supervillains, the Sinister Six does not really exist to directly oppose all of the Marvel superheroes as a whole. Instead, the group directly opposes Spider-Man. And the group was formed by Dr. Octopus due to the fact that at the time, Dr. Octopus had suffered a series of defeats at the hands of Spider-Man and realized that the only way to really defeat him would be to kind of put a team together that would fight him in stages. That is to say that Spider-Man would fight each member of the group one-on-one in a location that would be most suitable to their abilities. And with each person that was defeated, assuming that they were defeated, that person would possess a card which would tell Spider-Man who the next person was that he would face and where he would face them. Now, at the time, there were a few things going on here. Of course, Peter Parker had lost his powers as Spider-Man, and it's really kind of speculated that this was due to a mental block over his guilt with the fact that he had taken no action to stop the criminal that had later killed Uncle Ben. And so because of this, once the ensuing fights, or once the battles begin to take place, he dons the Spider-Man costume despite having no powers, goes to fight Electro, who was his first opponent, and then actually gains his powers back. Now, with regards to the actual antagonizing action that really kind of started started Spider-Man's involvement with the Sinister Six storyline, the Sinister Six had kidnapped, or I guess Dr. Octopus had kidnapped two major figures in Peter Parker's life. The first, of course, was Aunt May, his basically kind of mother figure in his life. And the second was Betty Brant. Now, a lot of people don't know who Betty Brant is, and it's really kind of a shame, because Betty Brant was a great supporting character in the Spider-Man storyline, and she was a huge part of Peter Parker's life in the early days. Depending on who you talk to, some people will say that Gwen Stacy was Peter Parker's first love. Some people will say that it's Betty Brant. But Betty Brant and Peter Parker never really got into as in-depth of a relationship as Gwen Stacy or even Mary Jane Watson. With Betty Brant and Peter Parker, there was chemistry, there was a romantic interest, but not a whole lot was really done about it. But despite this, she still played a pretty major role in Peter Parker's life. And so when she was kidnapped along with Aunt May, of course, Peter Parker really felt that he was compelled to act. Now, with regards to the defeat of the Sinister Six, of course, it happens, it takes place, and they all end up going to jail. But as time progresses, we begin to see different variations of the Sinister Six come up in future comics. The Sinister Six actually, the group actually returns once pretty much all the members of the Sinister Six come back together again after they break out of jail. The difference here is that one of the founding members, Kraven the Hunter, is killed. He commits suicide. And as a result, the Hobgoblin takes his place. Again, there are different versions that come along after that. There's the Sinister 12. There is the Sinister Six storyline from the Civil War timeline. There are a lot of different incarnations that take place, and of course Spider-Man is successful in defeating each and every one. Now, as far as the movie goes, I'm really kind of interested here, because the original Sinister Six was composed of course, Dr. Octopus, Kraven the Hunter, Vulture, Electro, Sandman, and Mysterio. But we really haven't seen any of these characters yet in any of the Marvel Multimedia Universe. The only real exception to that is, of course, the Fox films, and that had Dr. Octopus and Sandman as part of the original members of the Sinister Six. In this film, in the upcoming film, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, we're going to see Electro. But that leaves a few characters to be discussed. That leaves Kraven the Hunter, that leaves Vulture, that leaves Mysterio. And so I'm really kind of wondering what direction things are going to take, and what characters, what kind of villains are going to include in the new Sinister Six. Now, of course, the villain Rhino, which is being played by Paul Giamatti, had a role in the Sinister Six much later on, but they may go ahead and add him in there. But I don't really know how they're going to do it. Suffice it to say, I'm pretty sure they're just going to have 6 villains just come together and fight against Spider-Man. What I'm really hoping later on is that after the Venom story, the Venom film, they're not going to incorporate him into the Sinister Six. Because to my knowledge, the Venom symbiote, I guess as it was possessing Eddie Brock, didn't really have any roles in any of the Sinister storylines. Although I could be entirely wrong. I'm not as knowledgeable about Spider-Man comics as I am about most other comics, but I don't believe that Venom really had a role here. If I'm incorrect, somebody please post a comment and let me know. But I really am excited to see how this takes place. I really am excited to see how this plays out. And especially having a person like Paul Giamatti play Rhino. Paul Giamatti, for me, is really kind of hit and miss in terms of the films. In Saving Private Ryan, he had maybe 15 minutes of screen time, and he was amazing. But in Lady in the Water, it was a travesty to watch that film, and it was a travesty to actually see him in that role, so it was really kind of disappointing. But I think that regardless of what villains they choose to use, regardless of what kind of incarnation of the Sinister Six they choose to use, or if they create their own version, I think it'll turn out to be pretty interesting. I think it'll turn out to be pretty fun. I'm just a little skeptical here, because in Spider-Man 3, we saw a whole host of supervillains come into play. We saw Venom, we saw Sandman, we saw the Green Goblin, the second version of Green Goblin, Harry Osborn, come back. He was a villain at first, and he was a good guy at the end, and I think that if the film is done in kind of an ADD fashion, and I don't say that to offend anybody, but if it's done scatterbrained, it can really kind of destroy the film. And so I'm hoping that they include different villains that ultimately lead up to this point. If I had it my way, I would do a film that would be a precursor to the Sinister Six, that would show the Sinister Six kind of coming together, kind of, maybe organizing themselves, and then eventually have Spider-Man fighting the Sinister Six in a complete film, where he just goes from one villain to the next, and then ultimately is successful in defeating every member of the Sinister Six. And one of the funniest parts about the Sinister Six storyline, too, is that at the end, when Peter Parker rescues Aunt May, she didn't even realize she had been kidnapped. She had no idea. Apparently, when she was with Dr. Octopus, he was extremely kind, he was extremely courteous, and very conversational with her, and she thought he was a total gentleman. So, just one of those funny things, I guess. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and bring this video to an end. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, let me know, and I will catch you guys later. Peace.